Welcome to our KRA, Kentucky Reading Association, presentation on running records, getting the most from your running records.
All right, next we have the transitional level. The transitional level starts at about level 13, and when children get to the transitional level, it's about time, and especially in the first round, you start to look for discontinuation, are they ready, and what do we need to do next. When you get to transitional level books, you'll notice that there's little, if any, picture support, or the pictures may not always support the text. There's greater sophistication in grammatical constructions. There's increased vocabulary and concept loads. The events are more elaborated. The literacy language is more complex, and there's more information text, and of course the text density increases. So sometimes when teachers get ready to get into these higher level books, they think that's time to stop all of their support and they take too much away. But Marianne McBride cautions us that we need to look at independence. And she says that in the name of independence and testing procedures, many teachers think that they should begin to withdraw support from children's interaction with text. And therefore, texts get harder. That's when your lessons start going over 30 minutes. The reading becomes difficult, and children who have always been willing and ready to read, sometimes they begin to balk, especially when reading the new book. Okay, so we're going to take a look at a level 13. This is The Seed, and this is by Denise Kaminsky. There's 115 words in this book. And so what we did in the presentation, we took a look at the text of the book, This is the Seed, and we talked about what might be difficult for the child in the text. So let's take a look at that story. This is the seed that Joe planted. This is the vine that grew from the seed that Joe planted. So it does build. This is the flower that grew from the seed that Joe planted. And then look what happens to the text. This is the pumpkin that grew on the vine that grew from the seed that Joe planted. And then, especially on page 8 and 9, look what happens. Look at that vocabulary. Some of the people in the presentation talked about the vocabulary might be tough for this child. Here we have wheelbarrow and wagon. And of course, the day before, hopefully in the introduction, you've went over some of those words with them. And we took at one of my little guys. This is a really hard worker. He tries really hard. So at first he was all visual, trying to read through every word. So what we did is we worked on fluency. We worked a lot on meaning. And when he read this text, let's take a look at what happened. If you'll notice, the score was an 83, but he did work through a lot of words. He had a good self-correction rate, 1 to 3. But if you notice all throughout the text, look what happens when he gets to the word that. He says what. So when I looked at that immediately after the running record, I did a teaching point on that and what, and I brought him to the beginning of the word, and he was able to see the difference in the TH and the WH. Now, because he was visual most of the time, I really wanted to concentrate on the meaning and the structure, because I wanted him to notice that what he was saying did not make sense in the text. he was able to get words like wheelbarrow and wagon. So I really wanted him to listen to the structure of the text. And in no time, he had all that worked out. And I wrote on there, after he left me, that we need to revisit and ask him about meaning and structure. And also that 12 out of the 18 errors were what for that. So if we had not had those errors, this would have been an instructional text for sure. Okay, so after we viewed the video, we talked about what would help him, and I've already talked a little bit about that. And then, of course, we talked a little bit about Mary Freed, and we wrapped it up at the end. And we talked about some better quality teaching interactions and the need for teachers to observe closely and always teach from the learner's strengths, to go with what's known with the child, for the child, to reinforce partially correct responses that have strategic value, to select teaching opportunities that help the child build a system of understanding. And that's one of the most important things that we want you to get out of this presentation, that last bullet, to select those teaching opportunities that help the child build a system of understanding, because that's what Mari Clay really wanted you to understand about running records. Okay, and here we have Carol Lyons, and she has some great research out there. And this is one of the things that she says. The hardest shift for teachers to make is to think about teaching as assisting the students' problem solving. And then we're going to leave you with this. Running records can truly serve as a gold mine for information about the student's reading.
Mari reminds us that, running records are useful if we remember to do these things. Record error behavior in full because the information is needed when interpreting the records. Poor observation will reduce the number of errors, inflate the accuracy score. Reliability drops as accuracy levels fall because there are more errors to be recorded. Observation of poor readers is difficult, and rigorous training is required to reach agreement on scoring because of the complexity of the error behavior. And the most reliable records would be obtained by scoring an observation immediately following its manual recording. But for classroom teachers, this is not usually possible. As we conclude these presentations, you'll see that we've hit all these topics. We're just kind of bringing you back here to reiterate that to improve teaching, teachers need to observe these responses that our children or students give us. And we can see those competencies and confusions. We can see those strengths that they have and the weaknesses that they have. Evidence of processing, strategic activities, or the lack thereof. Evidence of what the child can already control. Now, listed here is our contact information. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to email us or call us. They're at the number at the bottom of the screen, and we can answer any questions that you have pertaining, to reading recovery. And I also like to mention the Holler is a place that KVEC has for digital media and articles and all the things that's going on in South and Eastern Kentucky. Holler at you later.